it's me, Mrs. Main, and in this video I'd like to show you how to do a BOC logic problem, and then I'd like us, that's you and me, to do it together. Before I start that though, I'd really like to show you how you can do it along with me. You see, you could print out this BOC logic problem and then you could just do it with a pencil, you know, the way our ancestors used to in the 20th century. But if you don't have a printer or you don't feel like printing something out, I want to show you how to do it on an app called Notability. I also want to show you how you can pull up on your screen Notability and this video at the same time, so you can be listening to me yammer at you about BOC and also be doing the BOC on your iPad. This is my pretend iPad here. Just imagine. So I'm going to show you that first, and then we're going to do the BOC problem together. In the top right corner, there should be a box with an arrow. You can't see it on my screen, but click on it so you can export to Notability. Once you're in Notability, you can zoom in and out, you can move it around, and you can mark it up. So do the BOC problem along with me, and then I'll show you how to export it back to Canvas. Oh, by the way, here's how to split your screen so that you can have the assignment open in Canvas and the page open in Notability, so I can talk at you while you do it along with me. Go down to the bottom to the dock and hold down the app for Notability, just the little pencil, and drag it up wherever you want it. Then you can resize it and play around with it. Good luck, and check the tech help page if you need any more tech help.
Hey guys, it's me, Mrs. Main, your friendly neighborhood challenge teacher, and I'm here to show you how to do a BOC logic problem. You're going to do this first one all the way through with me, and then I'll let you try one on your own. So first things first, usually at the top there's a story, and I'm going to summarize it here for you. You're going to match the ladies, Elizabeth, Gladys, Barbara, Virginia, and Gwen, with like the meat dish they had and then the side dish they had in this little grid problem here. You'll notice there's a box along the bottom. We fondly refer to this as the basement, and you don't have to fill it out if you don't want to. It's a place to store information, and you should try using it sometime, but maybe not the first problem. So keep in mind I only grade across the top. And one more thing, there are only two things that you put in these boxes. You put an X, which means no, or you put an O, which means yes. Don't shade in the boxes or put check marks or anything, because I won't even grade it. I'll just send it right back to you. So that's the first thing you need to know. Let's see, what else do you need to know about logic problems? Well, you're only going to have one O in each row and only one O in each column. See, if Elizabeth is having steak, then no one else is having steak, and if Elizabeth is having steak, she's not having any of these other options. So keep that in mind. Let's see what else. Well, you know what? How about we just get to the clues? Clue number one, the woman who had steak and corn sat to the left of Elizabeth and the right of Gwendolyn. We don't, gosh, what's a nice way to say this? We don't actually care where they sat, but this clue is telling us something. It's telling us the woman who had steak also had it with corn, and the woman who had steak and corn is not Elizabeth or Gwendolyn. So we can go on down here, find Elizabeth and cross her off for steak and for corn. And then we can go find Gwendolyn, and we can cross her off for steak and corn. Also, if we know somebody has corn or we know somebody has steak, then we know they'll also have the corn. And if somebody is not having corn, then we can also cross them off for steak, so that's fun. Clue number two, the woman who had chicken doesn't play cards, but the woman who had ham, the woman who had squash, and Barbara played bridge yesterday with Gwendolyn. Now again, we don't really care that they can play cards because it's not relevant to this problem. But what this clue is doing is describing all 5 women for you. Now, you could keep this information, like I said, down in the basement. And if you've been in challenge before, go ahead and try it if that's what works for you. The basement doesn't really work for me. What I like to do is I like to draw them out. So I'm going to draw this clue out. Here is the woman who had chicken. I don't know her name yet. And I'm not calling her names or anything, but she ate chicken, so we're going to call her Chicken. Here's the woman who had ham. And then the woman who had squash. So there's a lady who had chicken, a lady who had ham, a lady who had squash. And then there's Barbara. I'm going to write Barb because I'm lazy. And Gwendolyn. Speaking of lazy, I'm not going to write her whole name either. I'm going to call her Gwen. What this clue tells us is there's Barb and there's Gwen, and then there's a lady who had squash, the lady who had ham, and the lady who had chicken, which means Barbara did not have chicken, she didn't have ham, and she didn't have squash because she played cards with those ladies or whatever. We know Gwen didn't have squash, ham, or chicken either. So we're going to cross Gwen off for ham and chicken and squash. It feels really good to get an O, but the X's are actually a lot more useful because this is a process of elimination. Because it's a process of elimination, though, you should definitely never guess on these kind of problems because every answer is based on every other answer. And if you guess on one and you're wrong, all the answers that come after it will be wrong, and it will be really frustrating. You have to erase the paper and start over. And sometimes you might want to stomp your feet. That's okay. Clue number 3. The woman who had squash didn't have it with pork. Oh, all right. And Virginia did not order pork either. So there's a lady who had squash and there's Virginia. So this is kind of 2 clues in one. See that semicolon? The woman who had squash didn't have it with pork. That's going to be important later, but we can't do anything with it right now. Virginia did not order pork either. So I'm going to bop on down to Virginia. We can cross her off for pork. Virginia didn't have pork, and the lady who had squash didn't have it with pork. So we can cross Virginia off for squash as well. Boop. Oh, look at how much we've got done already. Clue number 4. The woman who had ham was recently married to Elizabeth's brother. Elizabeth would not marry her own brother, so what that means is Elizabeth is not the woman who had ham. Let's find Elizabeth and cross her off for ham, but we're not done with the clue. The woman who had ham was recently married to Elizabeth's brother. The woman who had squash helped Elizabeth wrap her present. So what this clue is saying is there are 2 ladies, the lady who married Elizabeth's brother and the lady who helped Elizabeth wrap her present. Neither of these is Elizabeth, so we can cross Elizabeth off for ham and for squash. Clue number 5. Gladys and Gwendolyn's vegetables begin with the same letter as do the vegetables of Elizabeth and Barbara. Okay, so what they're saying is Gladys and Gwen had vegetables that start with the same letter. So Gladys and Gwen had carrots and corn, or they had spinach and squash. And Elizabeth and Barbara also had, oops, there we go. They had vegetables that start with the same letter too. The person left out is Virginia. So Virginia has to have the food that's left out. She has to have peas. We can give her an O for peas. And now that we know she's had peas, we can X off everybody else for peas, up and down. And we can X Virginia off for everything besides peas. Which means if you look closely, we have another O. We've crossed squash off for Elizabeth and Barbara and Virginia and Gwen, which means Gladys is the only one that can have squash. So I'm going to X across because she didn't have any other vegetables. And if Gladys had squash, then Gwen has to have spinach because it also starts with an S. Let's see, what do we have left? Oh, Elizabeth has to have carrots because everything else is crossed off for her. So we're going to give her an O for carrots. and make sure we've X'd all the way down and across. Barbara has to have the other vegetable that starts with C. That's corn. Oh, and if we remember from the very beginning, the lady who had corn had it with steak. So we can give Barbara an O for steak and X down and across. But we're only half finished with the puzzle and we're out of clues. So back to the top and let's go over the clues again. The woman who had steak and corn. Oh, I know who that is. Hold on. The woman who had steak and corn is named Barbara. So I'm going to write steak plus corn down here. I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to keep filling out my little stick figure information. Where was I? The woman who had steak and corn sat to the left of Elizabeth and the right of Gwendolyn. So Elizabeth and Gwendolyn didn't have steak or corn. Check. The woman who had chicken doesn't play cards. Okay, but the woman who had ham, the woman who had squash, oh, I know who that is. Hold on. The woman who had squash was named Gladys. I'm going to cross off woman who had squash, and I'm going to write her name. The woman who had chicken, the woman who had ham, Gladys, Barbara, and Gwen. So I know Gladys didn't have chicken or ham, so I can cross her off for those. Oh, which means if you look closely, it has to be Virginia that had the ham because everything else is X'd off for her. So I'm going to put an O here, and I'm going to go across, and then I'm going to write her name here too. Your brain may not work this way, but I like to see and I like to draw all over my paper. It really helps me out. If it doesn't work for you, that's totally fine. Let's see, but we're still a little stuck, so let's keep reading the clue. The woman who had chicken, the woman who had ham, that's Virginia. And Barb and Gwen. Wait, Barb and Gwen and Gladys and Virginia and the woman who had chicken. So the woman who had chicken is, let's see, Virginia, Gladys, Barbara, Gwendolyn. Must be Elizabeth who had chicken. There are only 5 women. There's the lady who had chicken and Virginia and Gladys and Barb and Gwen. So I'm going to come on down here and give Elizabeth an O for chicken. I'm going to X across. Oh, look at that. So now we're down to the last 2 ladies. But I know who had squash. That's Gladys. So I have Virginia and Elizabeth and Gwen and Barb and Gladys. Let's see. Gladys had squash. There was a clue about pork and squash. Let me see if I can't find that. The woman who had squash didn't have it with pork. So Gladys is the one who had squash. If she had squash, she didn't eat the pork, so I can cross her off for pork. Which means the only thing left for her to eat is lamb. Which means the only thing left for Gwen to eat is pork. And that's how you solve a logic problem. The next logic problem in the set I'm going to ask you to do on your own. It's a lot easier than this one, but I want you to get the hang of doing it on your own. Good luck, and let me know if you have any problems. Bye, guys.
Hooray! You've finished the problem. Let me show you how to turn it in. If you're using paper, all you have to do is take your iPad and snap a picture. Make sure you get the whole worksheet, would you please? And then you just drop it into Canvas. You submit it via Canvas. If you're doing it on Notability, hang in there and I'm going to show you how to transfer it from Notability back to Canvas. It's loads of fun because when you turn something in, there's confetti. Ah! Stay tuned. To send this back from Notability to Canvas, hit the box with the arrow. It's on the top left of your screen this time. Hit Other Apps if Canvas doesn't show up, say Share Note, and then up at the top you can scroll until you find Canvas. Click on Canvas. And here's how to turn it in. Bop on over back to the assignment and you'll see at the top there are 3 little tabs: Detail, Submission, and Grade. Bop on over to Submission, and it's not going to let me submit because I'm a teacher, so hold on and I'll draw what you should see. This is kind of a low-tech solution, guys, but you should see an orange button in the top left that says turn in, and then it'll ask you to choose a file type. The first file type is file upload, and then there's some more options, but click on the top one, file upload, and the thing you've imported from Notability should be pretty easy to find after that. I'm hopeful. Please, please, please message me with any issues. I know this is, gosh, what's the right way to, it's not ideal. Thanks for hanging in there.